Next guest is a former Assistant Chief Counsel for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, commonly known as ICE. She recently wrote about her experiences working there and criticised its policies, saying, and I quote, "By deliberately blurring the lines between civil and criminal violations, ICE fuels the false narrative that non-citizens are inherently dangerous. In reality, nearly half of those arrested have no criminal record. But ICE is betting the public won't care to check the facts." Well, Veronica Cardenas, now working as an immigration lawyer, joins me live from New York. It's good to have you. What is President Trump's goal with these mass deportations?
I think his goal, number one, is for immigration to be the fallback. If he fails in other areas of his policy, he can always say, look, we're making good on our promise on immigration.
That's really interesting. Do you have evidence for that, or is that just your sense?
I think that especially the way that things are going with the tariffs, with other areas of his policies, and just yesterday to celebrate the 100 days of his presidency, he lined the White House with pictures of people who have been deported, alleging the crimes that they have been deported for. And so that really paints a vibrant picture for what this administration is doing, how he's trying to conflate both issues of criminal and civil law, and showing that, look, we're going after violent criminals. We're going after Tren de Araguas. We're going after MS-13 gang members. But in reality, when you look at it, yes, there has been some headway there. We saw just last week with a takedown in Colorado that was led by the DEA, where there were over 100 non-citizens who were detained and arrested because of, drug trafficking and guns. That is good. That has been done by every administration before him. He's using that now to get public opinion, to get on board with him detaining people who are going for naturalization interviews, non-citizens who are married to Americans who are going through the legal process, and as we saw on Friday, to detain and to deport U.S. citizen children, one of who was sick with terminal cancer. And so the poll numbers are right to show that they're moving in the direction where the public can see right through what this Trump administration is doing in the area of immigration.
Other Venezuelans, Latin Americans who are not affiliated with gangs being taken to El Salvador prisons as well as part of these mass deportations. How can the community be safe for a resident with a Venezuelan passport and a green card? What's the danger for them?
And that is right. And that is such a difficult question right now, because we're seeing two things. People who are in ICE custody, who are detained, those people need to have lawyers at the ready to file habeases, because we're seeing that right now the only thing that will protect people in that situation is federal courts. But for people who are not in that position, where they're not detained, we've seen these administrative errors happen even for people in New York City who are walking and grabbed right off the streets and taken to CCOT in El Salvador. And the case that I'm talking about, that person specifically stated, I don't want to go there. Please try to take me to Venezuela, deport me to Venezuela, my home country. And he was still taken to El Salvador. So what I'm suggesting is for people to have an emergency plan. If you are in a vulnerable situation like Venezuelan males are right now, because many people are erroneously being targeted and labeled as Tren de Araguas, to have counsel, to have a lawyer who can file a habeas, and to have an emergency plan where if something happens, a family member can immediately call. Because as we're seeing, administrative errors are happening. People are being deported that should not be deported. But this administration, despite court orders demanding the facilitation of the return of these people, they are not going to do that. They're not going to even entertain those court orders.
Look, it's good to have you on. Your insight is so important as we continue to cover this story. It's good to have you. And the US, of course, is also